The White House announced that President Trump is setting up a meeting on the Russian probe. This after the president demanded an investigation into the FBI. Joining me this morning is Wright State political science professor Lee Hanna. And Dr. Hanna, I just want you to explain first off, what exactly is the president alleging? Because to me, this seems very confusing.
Yes, and there are so many moving parts. And so just a quick, 30,000-foot view. This is the Department of Justice, which has a political appointee in Jeff Sessions. And under that are all of these intelligence gathering and law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, the CIA, and others. And what happened prior to the election is the FBI has offices everywhere. They have agents all over the world, but they also have informants. They have hired individuals. Some of those are maybe double agents, within another country's intelligence gathering infrastructure. Many more are just folks who are well connected. And so in this case, an informant in London who is actually a professor, but also paid by the FBI to kind of gather information, had some suspicions, which led to some interactions with three members in particular of Trump's campaign team. So this was back in 2016 prior to the election. And so President Trump is arguing that this is some kind of politicized investigation, that this was driven by the Obama administration, maybe with the license of the Clinton campaign, to try to dig up dirt in the administration, while currently the official answer that we're hearing from the Justice Department is that this was, it was because of the actions they were taking, the relationships they had with some Russians, what they were saying about, information that they had that led to this investigation. But that is kind of what President Trump is saying, is that there's some type of politicized investigation being driven by the FBI.
So is this related to the Russian meddling investigation that's happening right now?
Yeah, so the FBI was investigating Russia's meddling in our election prior to Election Day. It was generally kept quiet, and then the Mueller investigation opened up after the president fired James Comey. So when that happened, we start to kind of learn more. But we get little tidbits from a multitude of angles. Sometimes we're hearing about a Mueller probe because they've indicted someone. Other times we're hearing about the FBI and their investigation prior to the election. So this is related to that investigation that predates any of the Mueller probe or some of the other stories that are kind of cursory to this.
Well, how has the DOJ actually responded to this allegation at this point?
Yeah, so I would argue that they're trying to diffuse it and slow it down a bit. So President Trump put out a very forceful statement on Sunday night on Twitter. I hereby declare that we investigate this. And Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, as well as Christopher Wray, the Director of the FBI, met with him yesterday, and they've put this into the Inspector General's office, which is an office that is in a number of these agencies that essentially inspects the conduct, inspects the appropriateness of their own agency. And so that will be directed by, I believe his name is Michael Horowitz, who will be overlooking this probe. And now there's a question about whether or not Congress will be given some of this information. And I believe that part is still up in the air in terms of to what extent members of Congress will be able to see some of this classified data.
So all of this sort of coming out is still really kind of developing as far as what we're going to hear, what we're going to see, what we're allowed to see or hear even.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And there are some concerns that when you start outing informants, and this informant is essentially, their name is now out in the press, that can become very dangerous, not only for those individuals, but for their families and for our intelligence gathering, networks. And so that is something that Christopher Wray, the Director of the FBI, just vehemently said on the House floor last week, where he says, we have to protect these informants at all costs. And that's part of the controversy in terms of the president trying to get involved in this, as to what extent should the public know about these types of investigations before we have all of the information out there.
All right, Dr. Lee Hanna, thank you so much for coming in and breaking this down. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again very soon.
Probably so.
All right, our time right now is 7:07.